Hi, everyone. My name is Kim, and I'm the founder and creator of Expat Mama. Through these interviews that are both in the audio podcast and the new YouTube channel, we educate people about what it's like to be an expat, which is someone who's left their native country to live in another country. We tell their stories. Today, my guest is Kimberly Miles from the US. And she's been here in Mexico with her cute little son that I've seen called Jay. I'm so excited to welcome her. Welcome, Kimberly, from one Kimberly to another.
Yeah, hello.
Today?
I am good. I'm so glad to be here. Glad we were able to connect and chat today.
Yeah, finally. It took us a while to get it together, but that's life. That's life. So why don't we start with your origins? Where are you from?
I am originally from Alexandria, Virginia, born and raised.
It's a beautiful area. I've been there. Close to
Yeah.
Washington, D.C. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Nova area, DMV, whatever you want to call it. Yep, born and raised right there.
Love it, love it. So I'm sure that our watchers can't wait to see what you're about. Let's hear your family story and how you decided to take the leap to come to Mexico.
Oh, my family story. My family, they are so fun. I love them. They're interesting. But anyway, so my entire family is also from Alexandria, Virginia. When I say I was born and raised there, my entire family also was born and raised in Virginia. I come from a single parent home myself. Myself and my sister were raised by my mother. And actually, many women in my family are also single mothers. And so that was kind of the environment, the atmosphere that I came up with is, knowing that single mom life. But, growing up, I always knew that I wanted something a little bit different. And so as I went on and I saw, the struggles of my mom and how much she struggled to take care of us, struggles of my other family members and taking care of their kids and relationships, I just knew that, okay, this isn't quite for me. So I started doing things a little bit differently. I was the first person in my generation to go to college. I got my 4-year degree from Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia, and then went on to grad school and got my 2-3 year, I don't know. I got my MBA from George Mason University. And so from there, I kind of started a standard with my younger cousins who also continued to go to school and, start making changes in the families. We were the game changers, the people who just did everything different, started traveling, started going out of the country, started doing it on our own. And that's something that my former family members or my prior family members had not done. So of course they looked at me and looked at my family, my other cousins, like they were insane. But I was like, you know what? Insane is crazy because that means we're changing the game, we're changing the cycle. And so when I got out of college, I continued to travel. I continued to have fun, continued to live my life, maybe a little bit too much. And so the thing is, right, but I was having fun. But the thing is, when you come up with these in a family, a single parent family who struggles, a lot of the stuff you don't learn is how to manage things financially. And so because of that, I adapted a lot of those habits as well. And so I'm out here, I'm working, I have my first job, I'm traveling, but I'm also getting myself into debt. And so, my credit cards started to pile up, things started to get difficult, but you know what? I pursued and proceeded on anyway, got my good marketing job, ended up staying in corporate marketing for about 15 years. But, then I remember one year in 2012, things really took a change in my life. And not for the good. I mean, I lost a job, lost a good job. And so and then continuing to go into debt, things started to go downhill. Got another job a few years later, or, a couple years later, lost that job too. And this happened 3 times, like in a matter of 2-3 years, I lost 3 different jobs. I had to give up, the apartment that I was living in, move back home with mom because I was so much in debt. And then to top it all off with myself struggling and having to give up my car, my apartment, oh, guess what? I'm pregnant now. And so that's when life really changed for me because that was unexpected. Of course, living at home, I'm unemployed and having to deal with, in my mind saying that, okay, I knew that I wanted to be different all my life. I didn't want to be a single mom. I wanted to be married. I wanted to get out of debt. I wanted to have this good job. I wanted to do things differently. And the universe is bringing me right back down to this place, the same place where my family has been and where they started. I had to end up filing for bankruptcy, which was to me, I felt like the lowest part of my life. I'm like, you know what? I'm completely falling apart at this point. Like, what happened to me? Like, I have this drive. I have this I have the education behind me, I have the tools, but what is going wrong that everything is, repeating itself, this cycle? And I almost let myself stay there. I almost told myself, okay, this is what it's going to be like. This is just what my life's supposed to be. I have my son, I have my dreams to travel, but maybe I can't travel. Like maybe this isn't it. And I started listening to other people in my family tell me, you know what? Sometimes you just have to take things for what it is. And maybe you can't travel. Maybe you can't do it right now. You just have to, we did it. So, I mean, you can continue on like this too and be okay. And I almost believed it. And then one day it's like it clicked on me like, no, no. Like, why do I need to repeat this cycle? All my life, I said I was not going to repeat this cycle. Why am I making this decision right now that I need to repeat this cycle? Like, why am I believing that? And I told myself no more. I mean, so I picked up my son, I took the money that I did have, I saved it up, worked my butt off to get out of that government cycle where I was on food stamps. I was, struggling to, get out of that cycle, which is a vicious cycle because they tell
Yeah.
you, okay, you're in this cycle because you don't have enough to pay for, your food and housing. So we'll help you. But if you get this job that doesn't pay enough, this minimum wage job that doesn't pay enough to support you, it's still too much money for us to continue supporting you. So you can choose to struggle or struggle more.
Let me stop you here. And really, for those of us who, I'm sure lots of single moms, I hope they come and see this interview, because the US for single moms is a pretty sucky place.
Oh, it's terrible.
Because the system is built so that you have to depend on it. And there's something very important that doesn't get addressed very often, and it's called dignity.
Mm-hmm.
And being a single mom, it's hard enough as it is. We already feel guilty because we have to work, But if you work too much, then you won't qualify for the benefits.
Right.
And so there's a delicate, or you have to put your child in in childcare, so that you can work. So there's just like this vicious cycle. Plus, you're mentioning your environment you grew up wasn't the most conducive to taking you out of a place that you didn't want to be in the first place.
Right.
You wanted to rise above all that.
Exactly.
And it comes back to me. I just always say, I need to have dignity. So let's see where the stories goes after this. And the US was not giving me dignity either. So I get you, girl. I get you.
No, yeah. It is so easy to get discouraged in the US as a single mom. And that's part of, what led me to my journey to Mexico, which I'll get into. But yeah, it's a really hard place to be and thrive and feel good about things and to bring your children up in a positive way too. Like I never wanted my son to see us struggling that way because I want things to be different for him as well. And so, and all of this stuff is what led me to, to snap myself back into reality and say, you know what, this is not going to be my story. I don't care how hard it is for me. This will not be my story. And so I worked my butt off. I got myself back to use my education to get myself back into this corporate marketing job, found an amazing job. I went ahead, went through with that bankruptcy, and I didn't take it personally. Like I remember the guy I worked with, he was amazing. He's like, now I don't want you to think this is a good thing. I mean, and it's not, of course not. Bankruptcy is not a pretty place to be in. But it was how my mindset was about it, how I wrapped my mind around it. It was, this is my opportunity to start brand new. I learned from my mistakes. I will start brand new. And so it was that year, when the bankruptcy cleared, and my son at that point, we had traveled together once as a single mom, which was interesting to travel as with a 2-year-old for the first time. I remember booking my ticket like 3 days before the trip. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Where'd you go?
Yeah, and it was empowering and then a few months later, we went to Costa Rica. And then, after the bankruptcy cleared, we went to Mexico. And while I was there with my son, that's when I realized like, okay, Mexico is actually a pretty awesome place. And right around that time, I had told myself that I wanted to continue traveling abroad with my son. I wanted him to see the world as a different place. The US was going through a really rough time at that point in time, and my son is, being biracial. I wanted him to see, I didn't want him to experience some of the things as, a Black child growing up in the US. I wanted him to see the way different cultures were treated, different people were treated, to build a tolerance, acceptance for other people and lives and cultures outside of the US. And so I'm like, I want to start traveling more, but how can I make this happen if I'm in this full-time job, struggling to make ends meet with my son? Like, how is this possible? And it was around that time that I jumped on Facebook, and I forget what group it was in. I started joining single parent groups. And I remember asking one, or single parent travel groups. I remember asking one person in particular, um, how is it that families are traveling? When you have kids, what are you doing about school? What are you doing about everything else? And so she opened my eyes up to that point about world schooling and unschooling. And I'm like, what in the world is that? I mean,
I
I
know
heard
what moms you're talking about.
Yeah, and I'm like, I know
I
about.
think I know which moms. One's a Canadian and other's American, right?
Well, I don't know the Canadian, but there's one American girl. Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and so then she opened up my eyes to the like unschooling and world schooling, a completely different world. And so I started joining these other Facebook groups, and I was just amazed by how many families were living abroad full time with their kids, even single moms. And so I'm like, okay, so this
Especially
is
single
real,
moms.
especially single
Yes.
moms. Yeah, and I was like, wow, so where have I been my whole life? Like, I mean, like what
Yeah.
where has this been my whole life? But yeah, just to get through the story, I mean, that's when I really started educating myself more and drilling down into how I could make that happen for myself. I started researching countries. It always came back to Mexico. I realized there was a huge single mom community here. And when it came to work, I realized at that point that I could start my own business. I don't need to keep working in a corporate environment. And at one point, there was a mom who was teaching a course on how to start working, a location independent business. I dove in, invested in myself, took that course. And from that point on, like everything changed. I did not realize how easy it was to be able to create a lifestyle that allowed me to move abroad. So again, at that point, that was January 2018. I told myself, okay, by the end of this year, I'm moving to Mexico. I've done the research. I've seen, how single moms are thriving. They're all over the country. The cost of living is amazing. When my son and I were there, just the weight that we felt lifted off of our shoulders, and my son could actually be a child. Like I wasn't feeling like I needed to keep him under my wing and be afraid of him playing. Like it was such a kid-friendly country. And I'm like, all right.
So
By
kid
September,
friendly.
yes. I'm like, September 2018, this is the date that I'm going to make it happen. Or I'm sorry, I think I said September 2018, but I ended up pushing it back. Did the research, did the homework that I needed to do to get residency. And, God willing, it actually worked out. I got temporary residency at the beginning of that year. And I'm like, all right, tickets booked for June. And by June, we were out of there. I quit my full-time job, completely quit. I did not have clients lined up. I knew in the back of my head that I have the ability to do this. And, I knew what I wanted to do for my business. So I saved up my money, got my ducks in order, got my child's father involved who kind of helped with the process. And June 27, 2018, we were on a one-way ticket to Mexico.
Yay, mama!
Yeah, I know. I mean, and it's just looking back, it's just like, it amazes me to this day because the time's flown by. It's been 3.5 years. But I'm thinking now, like, just look at how quickly this happened and where I've come from. I see my memories come up on Facebook about me. I remember putting posts up about how I was just at the worst time of my life. And now here we are, we're living abroad, we're thriving abroad. My business is going well. My son's in school, he's happy. I mean, like, we are truly, truly happy. And I just
Thriving. You guys are thriving. And I look at you, and I told you right before we came on. I mean, I just take my hat off. I'm not gonna take my hat off because you know the reasons why.
Right.
Kind of a bad hair day today.
No, but you look fabulous.
But I honestly just think, yay. And we came to Mexico in the same year, by the way. We came in.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, we arrived around just a few months apart. And wow, what a change. Okay, so let me backtrack a little bit. What does it take to create this? I mean, the not so pretty sides, your business started, everything's great now, but what does it take to like get rid of undo a life in, for example, a country like the US, for example?
Yeah, well, honestly, and I get this question a lot. I tell people it really takes a lot of number one, drive, I mean, you
Yes.
can't give up. You can't give up. Like you really just have to have that determination and that thought in your head that this is going to happen. And I tell people in my when I do my coaching calls, stop saying I wish about things and say I will. Changing that
Love
story,
it.
changing that mindset. Like, I'm gonna stop saying I wish I could leave the US. I'm not gonna say I wish I could have my own business. Just say I will. This is what's going to happen for me. And then, making that decision then and there, not to let anyone or anything negative come into your way, because there's going to be people, there's going to be situations that try to break you down. And that's when that strength comes in, that determination that you have to decide that you're going to rise above that. My
Right,
sister, I
because,
remember,
excuse me, you are doing things that have never been done before in your environment, okay?
yeah.
And it does take that really firm decision, because
Mhm.
people are kind of like crabs in a bucket. They're just
Yeah,
gonna keep pulling you down. They cannot see your vision because
exactly.
they've never been through what you are trying to attempt to do it. Of course, you hadn't ever been through it either, but you're like, I'm doing this and I'm doing it, and here we go.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
diving in completely.
Mhm. And you take a leap of faith, because it does take faith.
And that's exactly what it was. Because, like, I said, I moved abroad. I didn't have a job. I don't mention that we moved to Puerto Vallarta sight unseen. I'd never stepped foot in Puerto Vallarta before, but we moved here.
And
And
what did you decide on Puerto Vallarta over other places?
well, actually, that's a funny story. We were actually headed to Pueblo because I wanted, as a part of this process, the main reason was really to the language and culture immersion. And so I knew that I did not want to move to a tourist heavy environment, an expat heavy environment. I wanted to be in like the real Mexico. And so we were going to Puebla. I heard a lot of good things about Cholula, and I visited on my own for a few days, the year prior, or a few months prior, and people were telling me, maybe that's not a good idea for your son. My son has asthma and allergies, and Puebla, there's this massive volcano, and they were like,
Yeah.
it's going to be issues, more problems than not. So I'm like, all right, my ticket's already booked through Southwest Airlines, so I can rebook with no change fees. It's either Mexico City or Puerto Vallarta. I'm not a big city person, love Mexico City, but I'm not city living girl at all. So I'm like, you know what? I've always said I wanted to live by the beach. I've heard amazing things about Puerto Vallarta. We are just going to have to find our own little place when we get there. That's not in the tourist heavy environment, but let's go for it. And so changed it to Puerto Vallarta. Again, had no idea what I was doing, but made it happen.
Yeah, good for you. So what's the journey been like for you?
Well, it was,
What's it been like from day one to now? 3.5 years now.
it's taken time to get to where we are, more so with my son, because we were 4 years, he was 4 years old when we moved. He's now 8, but he thought we were just going on vacation. And so a few days later, he was like, all right, I remember him saying, being at the beach, he's like, all right, Mom, this has been fun. I'm ready to go back to Virginia now. And I'm like, baby, we packed up everything. Like, I told you, this is home now. We'll go back to visit in a few months. And I'll never forget the look on his face. And he's like, excuse me. But it was a very rough transition for him. Number one, we moved during busy season, or, during the summer, and not busy season. And it was extremely hot and humid. And so trying to get around, oh gosh, the summers are miserable. Trying to get around and, make ourselves comfortable when we can't even really go outside during the day. I mean, like that was hard. Then there was the language barrier. I mean, there were kids who came up to him and want to play with him. And normally my son's a very friendly person, but there was that language barrier. So he was hesitant and found it hard to, communicate, even with kids playing like video games and having the same interests. He still found it hard to really relate to them. And then on top of that, we're from the DC, Northern Virginia area. It looks completely different from the local barrios here in Puerto Vallarta. And so he's like, Mom, I don't really like these restaurants. I don't like the neighborhood. Everything is dirty. I'm like, everything's not dirty. Things are just built
That's
a little.
what my son observed too. He is like, it's really dirty here. But where we lived before, Argentina, was much more dirty than Mexico. I can tell you that right now. There's a big garbage problem there, and
Oh, yes.
Mexico in general is so much cleaner and kinder. It's a kind of culture too. Yeah.
Right.
Kids observe everything and they tell the truth.
Oh yeah, they don't hold anything back. They're not trying to be friendly or.
But
But
okay.
But once we found a good school for him, one that kind of reminded us of where we were, a bilingual school, but it reminded us of one that we were back in Virginia. And we started to find our own circles. We started to connect with other moms, both expat moms and local moms, and things started to come together. Like, we started finding our community, things to do, things that interested him, and kind of recreating a life step by step. And now we're good. I mean, like, he's happy to be here. He still struggles with the language. Well, I won't say he struggles with it. He just refuses to use it. And
Wait. He refuses to use Spanish?
yeah, he doesn't like it.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's crazy because his dad's side of the family speaks Spanish. And so, I mean, whenever we're at their home, it's always Spanish. He just refuses to adapt to it. My son is a talker. Wonder where he gets it from. But he is a talker. And so the fact that he can't communicate when he wants to, how he wants to, it frustrates him. And so the only time he speaks Spanish now or understands it is like if I'm using my secret language with another adult and trying to have a conversation. All of a sudden, he understands Spanish then.
Oh,
but
spy on you guys.
Yes, exactly. All of a sudden, he understands everything then. But
So sneaky.
yeah, he's not really loving it.
Okay. And you mentioned something in passing that it's something I want to really put a big emphasis on: community. Okay.
Mhm.
Mexico is community. Let's talk a little bit about that. Did you live in community in the US?
I mean, I had my friends, my community there. I mean, if you want to call it that, but it was not nearly as, I don't know, and it's hard to find the words for it. Like
Supportive?
here, what's that? Yeah, exactly. Like here,
Okay.
I really feel supportive. I really feel like we have that community. That there are people like us who think like us, who feel like us, who understand what we're going through, who are accepting of what we're going through, who are more open to things. Whereas back at home, I mean, like people look down on us if we think a certain way or if we want to do something different. For example, wanting to move abroad or travel with my son as a single mom, I was looked down on for that. I was talked badly about. My sister
So disruptive. You're breaking the mold. How dare
yeah.
you?
They were like, oh my gosh, you'll be back in 6 months. And I'm like, why would you say that? And here I have that community of moms and people doing the same thing, people who look up to it, like local families that are like, wow, we want to do that. Like, how can we learn from you, and supporting it, encouraging my son to take it all in. And
Yeah.
it's like night and day. It is totally night and day.
And people
so,
don't make time for you in the US, really. I mean,
no, not at all.
to even get together, it's like they have to put you on the agenda and then they might cancel you because something else came up or whatever. And here, don't you feel like you've been given a place?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And even now, it's hard to get used to sometimes being invited to everything and actually being expected to show up. And I'm like, wait, okay, let me get out of this mind frame. Like even birthday parties, think about that. My son's first birthday party here when he turned 6. Keep in mind, we like actually know maybe a good handful of 15 people, like actually keep in touch with. His birthday party had like upwards of 80 people there because
Whoa.
I'm still traumatized by that birthday party, by the way. But it's like, again, that community. Okay, friends, family of friends. Oh, it's Jaden's birthday. Oh, we know that kid because you know them. So we'll come anyway. And then the family will come. It's just such a supportive community where people invite you places, whether they know you or not. It's just more welcoming. And like you said, those excuses aren't there. Whereas, like, in the US, I feel like people wait for there to be an excuse not to go to something.
Exactly.
Instead of agreeing.
Whereas here in Mexico, they're just looking for an excuse to get together and have a party.
Exactly. The carne asada. Oh, well,
That is 360. I mean, honestly, there's no way you cannot have a social life here.
Mhm.
So if you're lonely, which a lot of people are, the US is a very lonely country. It can be so lonely. I think the cure for that is move abroad, especially Mexico. I think Mexico is number one, is the numero uno, choice out there. Honestly, it's a great option and so close. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You'll go back and get a job there. I mean,
Exactly.
oh,
Exactly.
okay,
And that's what I tell people. I'm like, I think Mexico's a good starting place because of the proximity to the US. And I always remember somebody telling me, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that you'll be stuck you'll be right back where you are exactly now. And you're already doing what you're doing. So you can either go up or just back to what you were doing. That's the worst. It doesn't get worse than that. So It is what it is. And Mexico wasn't my first choice, but I am totally happy that we have made this our home. Like it, I'm just so happy here.
I'm happy you're here too. And we're actually in the same state.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
in the
you're
state of Jalisco. I'm in
right.
Chapala. Yeah, I'm over in Lake Chapala area, and we're in the same state. So what does your life look like on a daily basis? What
Daily
is Kimberly's life? Okay.
on a regular day, a regular school day, get up in the morning, walk the dog, get up in the morning, take my son to school, walk the dog, come back in, start networking, working a little bit, picking up my son around 2. And then after that, our day's free. Sometimes I may go back to work depending on if I'm doing working on a project or coaching someone, but otherwise, we're free to go to the beaches, go to the rivers, go to the lakes, go out to dinner. Like we do whatever we want. And it's like, I love that because I don't feel like, whereas back at home, I'm spending an hour and to get to work in a commute, spending 8+ hours at my job, spending another hour commute back home to pick up my son from daycare, who's in a crappy mood because he's been at daycare all day and I'm rushing and I'm in a crappy mood being at work all day, rushing to get home, dinner, bath, go to bed, do it all over again the next day. Here, we just have so much free time to do the things that we actually like and spend time together. And that's what I wanted, when I moved
You
abroad.
created it.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally created it. So what do you do, for example, if we can ask about what you can do to keep things afloat financially? What do you do?
So I was working in corporate marketing before for about 15 years, and I just decided to start doing that independently. So I have my own business, K&M Virtual Solutions, where I do the corporate marketing support, social media, content creation. So, that digital marketing component. So that's one side of my business. I do that for clients in the US. And then I also do my coaching of other single moms, where I'm teaching them how to pretty much recreate this lifestyle as well. How to, number one, relocate to Mexico specifically, but, for others who are looking to figure out how to leave that environment that they've been stuck in their whole life, kind of like where I came from, is teaching them how to get into the mindsets, the right mind frame of leaving that behind, finding your passions, turning it into a business, and taking yourself and moving on. So that's the other side.
And it does take a lot of mindset work, and that's just like a work in progress. I mean, I don't think you ever finish working on that. What do you think?
No, it's ongoing. I work on it every
Ongoing.
single day. I literally have to pump myself up every single day and be like, Kim, don't care what people say. Like, remember, you have all of this within you. And it's funny because both my friends, I call, even my blog, unapologetic. And I apologize. Like, I apologize for you on the call. Like, I'm sorry that all this, and that. And I'm like, but that's still a work in progress. Like, I'm calling my stuff this and I'm still apologizing.
That's what I always brought up, because it's like this morning before we were gonna get on, you came on and says, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this because your neighbor was working on hammering something. What was going on? I don't know.
Yeah.
And between our 2 dogs, it's just Mexico. Or like you say, like I'll be in the middle, because I teach classes online. I teach different online classes, English, Spanish, whatever. And then all of a sudden, and all the clients are in the US, of course, and it is live like this, always on Zoom. And here comes the tamale guy, and he knows that we're gonna buy from him. So he just parks right in front, and the music's
And
just
starts yelling.
blah, 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 and I'm like, okay. Luckily, I'm teaching a lot of Mexican Americans, so they get it, But so I go out there and I'm like, can you just turn off your music until I have, my last 5-10 minutes of my class? You arrive just a little bit early, which is not common here. And and then here comes the ice cream man in the afternoon, and they always and another one that parks out in front with his music. So that's just Mexico, and we just, like I say, we just like whatever,
just roll with
the punches.
Yeah, it's loud.
It's loud, and it's live too.
It's loud, but you get used to it.
You get used to it. People in your US aren't quite used to the same thing.
Not quite.
But it's just part of life. It is like life going back into, I don't know, the 50s and 60s. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was little. I mean, I'm quite a bit older than you, but I remember back in the States when the ice cream man would come with his music. And now we're doing that here in Mexico, and it's like going back in time. Back in time, yeah. Kind of like
but it feels good though. I like it.
It totally
does. I don't know.
And don't you find, Kimberly, that you never get bored here?
It's hard to get bored. There's so much to do, so much going on. It's just always so interesting. I tell people the same
So
thing. It's like, no, you can't really get bored. There's always something going on. It's like, it's always a surprise.
It's pretty awesome. And like you said, it's a real kid-friendly country. There's lots of culture here, but the main culture is family
Yes, absolutely. 1,000%.
over any other thing. So the food's great. We're in a kind culture, kind accepting culture that as we're learning the language, because I am learning Mexican. I'm fluent in Spanish, but it's a different Spanish.
Totally different.
So, oh yeah, I mean, if you learned that side of the world, then not half the words are not even of use here. So that's been
Right.
kind of interesting to learn the differences between how to say butter, you know. And instead of asking for butter, I'm asking for lard. You know, people are just looking at me like, what? This gringa.
Right.
You know, but it's all part of the learning. So I wanted to ask you a few more questions I had here on the questionnaire.
Sure.
So besides work, besides being with your son, what do you have any other hobbies or interests that you actually like to do?
When I'm not with working or not working, not with my son, I love traveling when I can, whether within Mexico or outside of Mexico. I'm starting to get more outdoorsy. So I'm trying to get into things like hiking, and I even did paddleboarding once last year, a couple of years ago, which was crazy. So, I mean, maybe I won't say those are hobbies yet, but things I'm working my way into.
Mhm.
Love spending time with friends. I mean, I do have a partner here, and so there's a lot of spending time.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Can you
spending
tell us
time with.
a little bit how you met?
Oh yeah, well, okay, so that's a whole
Oops,
other
I
hour
asked
long
the prohibited
episode.
question. You don't have to tell me.
Oh no, I was just saying
Just
that's an
tell
hour
our
long.
viewers, not me. I'll just close. Just.
No, we actually originally met through a mutual friend. And then we ran into each other again, actually online on an online dating site, and reconnected like right when COVID. I mean, it was still at its height, but things were starting to open back up here in Vallarta. Went on a first date that was just supposed to be friendly, and just a regular first date, getting out the house, and we actually really hit it off. So we've been together for about a year and a half now. That has been a journey. Dating Mexican is very,
That was
very
my next question.
big.
Is Mexican? Okay,
Yes.
how's that been?
Yeah. So that's interesting because there's cultural differences, there's expectations, there's just a lot of stuff. Again, that's another episode.
I'll come back for that one.
Yeah.
The
But it's been a
specific dating
journey,
part.
but it's been fun. It's been fun.
Fun. That's the most important thing. As long as you're maintaining the fun and a little bit of romance, and some magic. Hey,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great. That's great. And so that's the light in your eyes that I see. I'm just kidding. So anything you'd like to say or include that I haven't asked you about so far?
Um, Not that I can think of. I did a lot of talking at the beginning. I'm sorry if I took over
Oh
your
no,
interview.
this is all about you.
Okay. But no, not that I can think of. I mean, I just encourage anyone watching this, if you haven't made the leap, if you're thinking about making that leap, whether it be to Mexico or anywhere else, I'd say go for it. I mean, like this has been such an amazing, enriching, fulfilling experience for myself and my son that I mean, I'm just so happy we did it. I'm so glad that, I started creating those communities before leaving the States. That's another thing I want to say, like, start surrounding yourselves with like-minded people,
Yeah.
finding your tribe, finding people that think like you and want to be like you or that you want to be like, and start surrounding yourself with those positive people. It makes such a big difference to your life, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And when it comes to moving abroad, it just makes a big difference because otherwise it's like we have a choice. We can stay stuck where we are for the rest of our lives. I had a choice to stay in the United States. I had a choice to believe that story that I came up with, that I was supposed to be that person. I still struggle with that story sometimes. It's taken therapy. I did not see a therapist until I came to Mexico. Those are other things like, that teaching me to break out of, that bubble. So it's like, you have to make the decision for yourself that something's going to change, and surround yourself with anything it takes to make that change. Like, you don't have to stay there. And so that's just the last thing I want to say. It's like, I
That's
just encourage
exactly
you.
like you say, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because if you want to be like, you want to be different and break out of that, maybe toxicity, you can call it whatever you want to call it. You want to be different, then you got to surround, if you want to be a traveler, surround yourself with travelers.
Yes.
You want to be a business person, an entrepreneur, and you want to create this kind of life, surround yourself with the people that have done it and continue to do it.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
otherwise, you're not going to get the right advice. You're going to be
Exactly.
like that person, in that bucket. They're just pulling you down
One is
because
always
they
pulling people
can't
down.
see what you see. And I'm so
Exactly.
thankful that you've come here. So how can people contact you if you want to be contacted?
Well, I am on Facebook, so you can look me up directly by name, Kimberly N. Miles. I only ask that if I am reached out to by Facebook, do some kind of introduction of how you met me, because I get a lot of random friend requests, and I deny a lot of random friend requests.
Because you're gorgeous, and so you attract a lot of people.
Oh.
So they're like, I want to meet that sexy expat that's in Puerto Vallarta.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
But I
of
also have
course, you're a sexy
my,
mama.
I also recently launched my kind of my landing page website, KimberlyNMiles.com, and that just shows you how to get to my blog, my business website, my program that I have for single moms, and how to book a call where you can just reach out to me, email me. So that just has everything, all the methods you need to reach out to me. But
Everything all under one umbrella.
yeah.
Yeah, Kimberly N as in Nancy Miles.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
.com.
Mhm.
Perfect. Let me see if I left any stone unturned here that I wanted to ask you about. Well, I've got you. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get you again. I have to get in touch with your secretary first.
I need to hire one. I really do.
I think you do. So just on a side note here, for those of you who are watching, don't forget to subscribe, as we feature a lot of interesting perspectives in these podcast interviews in both English and Spanish. So Kimberly Miles, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm so thankful that we were able to get together after many, many obstacles.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah. And I wish you the best. And here's an invite. Okay, we're in the same state. We've got room in your house if you want to come over with Jay.
Okay.
And come hang out with us.
Yes, I love that area.
We stay in Chapala.
Yes, I love it there. We visited once when we first moved here and haven't been back since, but love it there. So I will take you up on that invitation.
Yay. Okay, we will be very much in touch. Have a great day. And we're right before Thanksgiving. So I want to just say I'm thankful to have you, and thank you everybody for watching. We'll be very much in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you. Adios.
Bye.